Please don't keep this letter, but burn it. Before I begin, here's a check for $1,000. It seems funny, doesn't it, for me to be sending a check to you? Where do you think I got it? I've sold my story, Daddy. It's going to be published serially in 7 parts and then in a book. You might think I'd be wild with joy, but I'm not. I'm entirely apathetic. Of course, I'm glad to be paying you. I owe you over $2,000 more. It's coming in installments. Now, don't be horrid, please, about taking it, because it makes me happy to return it. I owe you a great deal more than the mere money, and the rest I will continue to pay all my life in gratitude and affection. And now, Daddy, about the other thing. Please give me your most worldly advice, whether you think I'll like it or not. You know that I've always had a very special feeling towards you. You sort of represented my whole family. But you won't mind, will you, if I tell you that I have a very much more special feeling for another man? You can probably guess without much trouble who he is. I suspect that my letters have been very full of Master Jervie for a long time. I wish I could make you understand what he is like and how entirely companionable we are. We think the same about everything. I'm afraid I have a tendency to make over my ideas to match his, but he is almost always right. He ought to be, you know, for he has 14 years' start of me. In other ways, though, he's just an overgrown boy, and he does need looking after. He hasn't any sense about wearing rubbers when it rains. He and I always think the same things are funny, and that is such a lot. It's dreadful when two people's senses of humor are antagonistic. I don't believe there's any bridging that gulf. And he is, oh, well, he is just himself, and I miss him and miss him and miss him. The whole world seems empty and aching. I hate the moonlight because it's beautiful and he isn't here to see it with me. But maybe you've loved somebody, too, and you know? If you have, I don't need to explain. If you haven't, I can't explain. Anyway, that's the way I feel, and I've refused to marry him. I didn't tell him why. I was just dumb and miserable. I couldn't think of anything to say. And now he's gone away, imagining that I want to marry Jimmy McBride. I don't in the least. I wouldn't think of marrying Jimmy. He isn't grown up enough. But Master Jervie and I got into a dreadful muddle of misunderstanding, and we both hurt each other's feelings. The reason I sent him away was not because I didn't care for him, but because I cared for him so much. I was afraid he would regret it in the future, and I couldn't stand that. It didn't seem right for a person of my lack of antecedents to marry into any such family as his. I never told him about the orphan asylum, and I hated to explain that I didn't know who I was. I may be dreadful, you know, and his family are proud, and I'm proud too. Also, I felt sort of bound to you. After having been educated to be a writer, I must at least try to be one. It would scarcely be fair to accept your education and then go off and not use it. But now that I'm going to be able to pay back the money, I feel that I have partially discharged that debt. Besides, I suppose I could keep on being a writer, even if I did marry. The two professions are not necessarily exclusive. I've been thinking very hard about it. Of course, he is a socialist, and he has unconventional ideas. Maybe he wouldn't mind marrying into the proletariat so much as some men might. Perhaps when two people are exactly in accord, and always happy when together and lonely when apart, they ought not to let anything in the world stand between them. Of course, I want to believe that, but I'd like to get your unemotional opinion. You probably belong to a family also, and will look at it from a worldly point of view and not just a sympathetic, human point of view. So you see how brave I am to lay it before you. Suppose I go to him and explain that the trouble isn't Jimmy, but is the John Grier home. Would that be a dreadful thing for me to do? It would take a great deal of courage. I'd almost rather be miserable for the rest of my life. This happened nearly 2 months ago. I haven't heard a word from him since he was here. I was just getting sort of acclimated to the feeling of a broken heart when a letter came from Julia that stirred me all up again. She said, very casually, that Uncle Jervis had been caught out all night in a storm when he was hunting in Canada, and had been ill ever since with pneumonia. And I never knew it. I was feeling hurt because he had just disappeared into blankness without a word. I think he's pretty unhappy, and I know I am. What seems to you the right thing for me to do? Judy. 6th October. Dearest Daddy Longlegs, yes, certainly I'll come at 4:30 next Wednesday afternoon. Of course I can find the way. I've been in New York 3 times and am not quite a baby. I can't believe that I am really going to see you. I've been just thinking you for so long that it hardly seems as though you are a tangible flesh and blood person. You are awfully good, Daddy, to bother yourself with me when you're not strong. Take care and don't catch cold. These fall rains are very damp. Affectionately, Judy. P.S. I've just had an awful thought. Have you a butler? I'm afraid of butlers, and if one opens the door I shall faint upon the step. What can I say to him? You didn't tell me your name. Shall I ask for Mr. Smith? Thursday morning. My very dearest Master Jervie Daddy Longlegs Pendleton Smith. Did you sleep last night? I didn't. Not a single wink. I was too amazed and excited and bewildered and happy. I don't believe I ever shall sleep again, or eat either. But I hope you slept. You must, you know, because then you will get well faster and can come to me. Dear man, I can't bear to think how ill you've been, and all the time I never knew it. When the doctor came down yesterday to put me in the cab, he told me that for 3 days they gave you up. Oh, dearest, if that had happened, the light would have gone out of the world for me. I suppose that some day in the far future one of us must leave the other, but at least we shall have had our happiness, and there will be memories to live with. I meant to cheer you up, and instead I have to cheer myself, for in spite of being happier than I ever dreamed I could be, I'm also soberer. The fear that something may happen rests like a shadow on my heart. Always before I could be frivolous and carefree and unconcerned, because I had nothing precious to lose. But now I shall have a great big worry all the rest of my life. Whenever you are away from me, I shall be thinking of all the automobiles that can run over you, or the signboards that can fall on your head, or the dreadful, squirmy germs that you may be swallowing. My peace of